poetic color. Like, so this is naturalistic color. You just go out, take a photo. The sky is blue, the clouds are white, the grass is green. Okay?
Crayons.
Or, crayons, which is fine. It's good stuff. Ghibli does this kind of color. Poetic color is you're
making it better than God? Like, what are you talking about?
No, it's you're taking what God did and crafting it into a poem so that when you give it to, because look, God gets the sun and the physical world and smells and touch and taste, and we have to take like colored dirt and scrub it on a canvas and try and represent the experience we had out there, or the experience we had watching the people drag in the fish. And so you have to, all color is ultimately a poetic take on what it was that you saw.
All right, welcome to another episode of The Right Stuff. I'm your host, Jake McAtee. I'm with my co-host, Jared Longshore.
I'm here, present.
Jared, we have a special guest today.
Yes.
Do you mind introducing Forrest Dickison?
This is Forrest Dickison. Words and pictures of Crispin's rainy day. Forrest Dickison. This is all you.
This is all you, he said.
Wow.
Oh, that's a heck of a
The
recommendation.
energy in here is it's the
a
right
heck
stuff.
of a recommendation. We have Forrest Dickison with us today, author of Crispin's Rainy Day. Forrest, welcome. You're fresh off of a week teaching at New St. Andrews.
Yes.
I hope we get the best Forrest we can still.
Same. No.
What have you been teaching?
I taught a visual storytelling class, which is a fancy way of saying we watched some movies and talked about them.
Okay.
And so it's an MFA in creative writing. So I'm the visual storytelling aspect of that.
Nice. What movies?
Ooh, good question. I Am Legend was one of them.
Oh. Big Will Smith?
Yeah. Classic Will.
Classic.
That's probably his high watermark as an actor. That was one of them. There was some others that escaped. Some Coen brothers. We did some Coen brothers.
I Am Legend, Fargo.
Coen brothers. I don't know. It was always a Monday. This is Friday. It was on Monday, so it was a long time ago. I forget. So Miyazaki was in there.
Howl's Moving Castle. No Country for Old Men was the other one.
Yeah. So anyways, that's what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, Forrest, today I wanted to talk to you about Crispin's Rainy Day. It's been out for some time. How has the feedback been?
Great from what I can tell. Yeah, it's people seem to really enjoy it, and the ones that don't enjoy it do not enjoy it in the exact way that I anticipated. So
That you intended.
even the bad reviews, I baked into the book.
So for Jared, who's not yet read the book,
I can't believe this.
give us what is the
How
what
old is
if
your youngest? Isn't it like?
Oh, it's perfect
4.
age. Perfect age.
Ah.
Yeah.
I've got 4. I've got 5. I've got other numbers.
And you're too busy to read to them at all, or
Oh no, he's a busy guy.
Well,
busy guy.
You know,
Busy guy.
it's a
You
lot
are.
of asterisks and obliques going
there
on.
we go. That's better than this. So,
Yeah.
you know.
So for Jared, what is the what if that got you to chase this story? What got you to write and complete Crispin's Rainy Day?
Well, yeah, it was just the image of a boy jumping through a puddle in his backyard, because that's
Jumping through it,
not
just in it.
Did I say in?
Jumping through it.
Not only in, but through.
Yes.
Where did
Into-
this come from, though? Where did this idea come from?
I don't know. I mean, there's Lewis. Lewis does it with the wood between the worlds.
Yeah.
There's the pool thing, but I don't know. Just puddles are great. I mean, so yeah, I don't know.
Just
Okay,
came.
is there another one? Is there a second?
Yeah. So then once he was through the puddle, there had to be something there. So I thought frogs. I knew I wanted to be like a. I had his house is based off an apartment that is in town that my wife and I lived at in our early years of marriage. And there was a fantastic puddle in the driveway. So that had to be the puddle, because it's just really mundane, everyday, small town, Moscow driveway puddle. So I started there. Boy's going to jump through into some fantastical world, and I just ran with the kind of the backyard motif. So I put in frogs, because those are something you could find in your backyard.
Common everyday
Animals that are actually fantastic and glorious. And but so he jumps through a puddle, and then the first version he is captured by a crew of pirate frogs. So I chased that for a bit, and then the character, Crispin's character, wasn't as interesting because he was passive. I think he fell through the puddle at first, and then was captured by frogs. So it was just one accident after another. And I was bored at that point. So then I had an epiphany, and I don't know how else to describe it, because I was sitting at my desk, and it was like this shot of adrenaline through my body. The muses came and flipped it, and now I went from Crispin being a prisoner to being the captain of the pirate frogs, and from there the book just kind of happened.
So he goes through the puddle. He shows up, and he was like, "Here's where we're headed today."
Yeah,
it was that flip.
Yeah, this crew is waiting for him, and they're just ready to go on the next adventure.
There we go.
So
nice. Who's the girl?
That is Rose, Crispin's little sister. So after I had Crispin, after I decided Crispin needed to be the captain and not a prisoner, he needed his own crew of pirate frogs. They needed some arbitrary treasure that had to be fun. They needed to go look for treasure. And then there wasn't a story. It was just it's just a boy and his crew looking for treasure. So then I introduced Rose, and then that's where the story actually kind of found its legs. So she's this younger sister. She has no arc in this story by design. This is where so if we call this segment the Rose Beef segment, this, you've stumbled upon one of the major criticisms of this book, which is Rose. Yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, anyone that has beef with this book, it's about Rose being roast beef. Yeah. Too traditional. She's in an apron. She cooks and cleans, and that's it, right? But sure, on the surface, where to even start? So I knew that Crispin needed to be the one with the arc, so he had to have all the anxiety. He had to have this thing that he wanted more than anything. Rose needed to help him find that. She just wants to be included with his piratical adventure. But instead of having her following Crispin and just being annoying, she's following Crispin and just being awesome, which annoys Crispin even more. So she's doing her own thing for the entire book. The book opens with Rose saying, let's have a picnic in my fort. She's built this blanket fort inside. Crispin's too busy. He runs out, jumps through the puddle. And then Rose follows him through the puddle and brings treats for all the pirate frogs, which is just embarrassing. Like, you can't do that. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Pirates just eat meat. Yeah. Rhymes with treat. We don't eat sissy stuff. Yeah. We don't eat. Yeah. So Crispin locks her in the cabin, and that's where she really starts to shine, I think. Instead of reacting to Crispin's unkindness throughout the book, she just does her own thing, which is, she cleans it up and makes a feast, makes a nice cake, makes the cabin spotless, polishes all the weapons. A lot of people think if she's not right exactly where Crispin is, the story is weaker for it. Right, yeah. So there's like one girl character that exists right now, which is a small version of the girl boss, who's like, I can be a boy just as much as the boys. And that's just boring, unrealistic, uncompelling, shrill, annoying. So I wanted Rose to be genuinely stronger than Crispin, and also feminine at the same time. So she just wants to have a picnic. That's what she's doing. So she makes the cake, it seems like the greatest crime that this author has committed is that the gentleman set out on a voyage to find the long lost lightning blade. It's found by Rose accidentally and unintentionally. On accident, yeah. And that just accidental nature made a lot of people upset. Yes. So Rose is eventually kidnapped by the dragon, locked in jail, and that's where she finds the lightning blade. Because she starts cleaning. She starts cleaning and throwing stuff out the window. And the lightning blade, Crispin's goal in life is just casually tossed out with the trash. But it works out because
she's above it all.
She's still a prisoner.
Yeah.
She's still in the dungeon and needs to be rescued. So that's when Crispin grabs the lightning blade, kills the dragon, rescues Rose, and then they have a feast. So everyone gets what they want / needs in the end. You know, Crispin learns not to be a snot to his sister. Rose gets exactly what she wants by baking a really nice cake and being unflustered by the men around her, which is a feminine like trait that is so rare and so deeply compelling. I just thought this would be fun to make a picture book about that.
Nice. So what's Crispin's motivation for locking her in the cabin?
We can't have girls on the ship. It's just a classic, a tale as old as time. Like, your sister is annoying by definition.
Nice.
And so they're busy looking for the lightning blade. We can't have girls on board. You get to hang out in the cabin while we do our thing. And by not reacting and just doing her own thing, she eventually changes
The whole ship.
everything around her
By being woman.
by being like, yeah, just a cheerful, unflustered, calm, feminine presence. The ship is changed, and she's crowned pirate queen in the end.
Nice. Dude, I love that story. That's they maps in so many ways, but the one thing that comes to mind is so we have 7 kids, you know, and they're all in school, and boys are playing basketball, girls doing volleyball or track, or, you know, we're just busy. I'm hustling around. So I'll do all this stuff, and then, you know, Heather and I will chat at the end of the day, and we'll bring each other up to speed. But we have 7 kids, so it's like, you know, how much time do you have at the end of the day to do that before we're both just like exhausted? And so sometimes somebody will be like, "Did you see this thing that Jared did? You know, Jared did this podcast, or Jared wrote this article." And my wife's like, "Oh, really? I didn't know." You know, like, she's like, so the division of labor creates this. I'm doing this thing, and she doesn't always, you know, she's oblivious to whatever things that I'm doing that might be like, you know,
News.
it might be
important.
news.
Yeah.
And so she's doing all the important things, and by doing them is beautifying everything and actually winning the day. So that's great. Nice story.
Thanks. Yeah, you should read it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to. So you have you written other books?
No, this is the first. This is the first one. I've tried to write other books, so this is the first one that was finished.
Okay.
Yeah,
You've done the pictures of other books.
I've sketched and scribbled, and, you know, but this was the one that made it from beginning to end. Got published, obviously. So
Nice.
the
So
debut.
can we talk about the pictures?
Let's do it.
I mean, how long does it take to do this?
The cover or
Yeah.
the whole book?
Just the cover.
Yeah, this is a question that I should have an answer to at this point. I don't know. I mean, there's like a lot of work that goes into thinking about it. And then the actual execution, you know, drawing the lines, dumping in the color, is not that long, because it's still, you know, it's a picture book. It's not like I'm carving something fancy out of marble. The actual craft itself doesn't take that long, but
Hierarchy and like all the things you were thinking through.
yeah, you know, just ideation,
Yeah.
you know, iterations of covers, you know. So all the longest portion of the work is generally the thinking about it, you know, just coming up with the ideas, I guess.
And I've never drawn anything, hardly anything. So I'm wondering, like, is it the same creative process as writing?
Yeah.
Like, is it like I'm sitting there thinking about where I'm going to put these people, what's going to be in the background? And I mean, do you just sit there and like mull on it, or do you like do you take stabs at it?
Yeah, it is really similar to writing, but writing, like, coming up with original words and saying something clear is the most challenging part. But once you've like written it in your head, once I draw it in my head, then it's just kind of, yeah, I do thumbnails, sketches, just a really rough pass, because there's not, you can, if you have a clear idea of what the end product needs to be, you can get away with 3 quick shapes kind of scribbled onto a page. So like, this is, you know, I knew, like, okay, there's a circle here, that's stand-in for the crew. There'll be something here, something there, something there. It'll be like quadrants, title there. And then the work at that point is done. You just have to go and make it, so it's similar to writing in that you start with a blank page, and then you have to find your way to a finished product that is clear and has a point. But with writing, you're not actually, like, typing is still almost like the most abstract physical activity. I feel like you're just so close to creating ex nihilo. With drawing a picture, you actually kind of have to roll up your sleeves and, like it's like a performance almost, where all the rehearsing is done in pencil. You're sketching, and then the final, like, opening night, the one shot you get is when you ink it. Like, this is the final line, and it's like this performance that's frozen in time. So you're with writing, it's just, you can kind of noodle as much as you want, edit, white it out, and it's less of that performative. There's less of that performative element to it, I feel like.
So when you're going to both write the book and illustrate the book, did you write the whole story first? Did
No.
you write some and illustrate some and back and forth?
Yeah, it was back and forth. So like I said, I started with that image just in my head and kind of did some rough sketches of, a boy jumping into a puddle, and then just sat and looked at it for a while. And then what happens next? And then maybe I had to write something. How do I get this boy into the puddle with words? I got him there with pictures. Now I got to do it with words. But then you have to also play the words as like the bass line, and the pictures are the melody or something. So it's like it can't just be words and then pictures repeating what the words already said. So my goal is to, like, write the story and then have the pictures build on it and expand on flesh out the world, expand on the idea, so that you have.
It's not a one for one.
Yeah, it's like a harmonize. You're trying to harmonize it. You're not just repeating yourself with pictures, because then it gets a little like, why does it need to be a picture book? If you wrote it with the words and you're just repeating yourself with the pictures, it could have just been just a little poem that you threw out there.
Okay, explain that to me in one of these sections.
Yeah, so
he plunged into the sea.
Yeah, so
and he looks like he's plunging into the sea to me. Hey,
don't call me out on this.
That's respectfully, that's 1 for Jared, 0 for me.
No, because I'm super interested, because my brain, I have another question about which is the bass line and which is the melody, but I'll wait for that one. First, can you so tell me, you write he plunged into the sea, but what are you doing? I mean, I would just have him plunging into the sea, and I'm ignorant, so I just looked at this and I think he's plunging into the sea, but I know there's more there. So, what did you do?
So, okay, he tumbled through a cloudy sky. Obviously, that's 1-to-1, but there's a ship there, right? So it's not just there's more information. Like, the image is pushing you a little further. You plunged into a sea, you get the whole of a boat. So that's setting up. It's like you're setting up punchlines over and over. So you set it up, deliver the punchline, set up the joke, deliver the punchline. So, and then even with this, and met up with his pirate crew, all brave and bold and free. He's like, you could just have him shaking hands with the crew on a ship, or, he's just got netted out of the ocean. There's a bunch of flopping fish. So you can give deliver the bare bones information with the words, and then build the world with the pictures. So he's caught up in a net, they're fishing, whatever it is.
To keep pushing Jared's question in, because I do want you to go to his second one, but where is there, do you remember a section here where you had this difficulty, where whether it's like ideation or whether it's where did you run into trouble, and what was the end result?
Ooh, it was so long ago. I remember the killing the dragon beat. Well, actually, before we go there, here's another one. This is one of my favorites that some people have caught, some people haven't. This guy, he's so pumped to see Crispin, he's just firing his gun. Then the next page, Rose and Mary Poppins umbrellas into the scene, and she's got a smoking bullet hole in her umbrella. So telling you instantly that she just got shot at, and is just like, I don't care. I'm not, unflustered. So things like that, where it's like, I'm just kind of, at that point, I'm just kind of entertaining myself, but it still adds an element to Rose that, on your 100th reading as a parent, whatever, if your kid likes it that much, you can start to pick up these little things that help build the characters. But back to your question, I think the beat at the end with the dragon was at first
time.
it took time. It was too short, and there wasn't this like big finale. That the payoff didn't really feel very satisfying. So then it was challenging to get to physically stage it so that I could set Crispin up so that he could jump off a rock and slash the dragon. When the introduction of the dragon's like flying out from behind a castle above the crew. And I needed to I knew I wanted that image of Crispin with the sword above his head yelling for Rose, It had to be this epic moment because I wanted boys to jump off the couch and do the exact same thing with their own lightning blades at home. So I knew I needed that beat where Crispin could jump off a rock and kill a dragon with his lightning blade. So
you do have to stage that and
you had to give the information about the dragon, what's going on, but then get him up on this rock without letting people know, I have to pause the story so Crispin can run up here just so I can get that one image of him, slaying the beast.
Nice. So on the with the net, the text says, "It met up with his pirate crew, all brave and bold and free." He could just be shaking hands, but you have him in the net. Are you saying that? So is it not as good if you add a line like "bounded in a net with fish for the eyes to see" or something like that? Right.
Nice. That rhymed off the
Here we
dome.
go.
Yeah, off the dome. So does that but that would make it not as good.
Because if you're just describing everything on the page with the words, then you don't necessarily need to see it with pictures as well. So it's a little more impressionistic. I think if you have a brush stroke here, little gap, little brush stroke here. So the imagination has to jump from images to words, and that keeps it active. At least that's the theory. That's the goal. I want kids to read this and to be listening, processing the words, but also noticing things, being surprised and delighted by the little details and things that aren't actually mentioned in the text.
That one-for-one nature, that inhuman. There's something inhuman, whether that's about dialogue, people that write dialogue where a character says every single thing that they mean. No human does that. When they say, "Oh, hey, Jared," could mean all kinds of things. I'm not happy to see Jared at all. It could mean, I feel like you get the same feeling when someone's teaching from a PowerPoint, reading the PowerPoint.
And where you're just falling asleep.
Oh yeah.
Subtext is what makes
you want trying to get the audience to be solving a puzzle or just to be engaged. So don't do all the work for them. It's which is why this is often a little jag. I like impressionistic painting in general because it's like a magic trick.
As opposed to what?
Opposed to just overly rendered realism. And like John Singer Sargent, we wouldn't call him an impressionist, but it's a very expressive brushwork. Up close is just abstract. It's hard edges, soft edges, different harmonizing colors. But then you step back and the whole thing comes into focus and becomes something greater than the sum of its parts. If it was highly rendered such that you could get up close and see every pore, my brain has nothing left to do. It now is just this, okay, that's a picture of a guy. And my imagination doesn't care. I need some subtext. It's not, so it's just don't give the audience everything. You want to hold a little back,
So this is interesting. Could you do a quick sketch? So you're an artist, these worlds. Can you talk about impressionistic painting? What would be the argument against it? Isn't there kind of isn't there, yeah.
Chesterton's.
Break all this down for us.
Well, so you can go too far. And this is, so what the Impressionists were doing in general was, a lot of it was just rebellion. There's no longer objective truth. It's all Impressionism. It's all based on a subjective take your truth matters. So I was standing here. This is what I saw, and I'm trying to convey how that felt.
Can you give some names to the bad impression that you're talking about?
Syrah
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he's the guy that does like the pointillism, where it's like there's a scene of a park, a lady with a black umbrella, people lounging, playing, but it's a classic example of pointillism, I guess. That I hate because it's so dead and lifeless and soulless, and it looks like the world it's like he took the atoms and pulled them apart and said, see, it's just all bits and pieces. There's no cohesion anywhere. It's just everything is meaningless. The guys like Monet, I actually quite like because he still cared about, to a certain extent, like
Also
good draftsmanship. What's that?
Also an impressionist.
Yeah, the impressionist really is like, he was chasing light itself, which is really cool and hadn't been really done before with painting as a medium. The American impressionists, guys like Edgar Payne, William Wendt, he was a German living in California. They took the brushwork and the color palette from the French impressionists and reintroduced solid draftsmanship. And so the American impressionists, while not as famous as the French, are way better because they're, at least some of them, they're building this human impression, this like vibrating, colorful landscape on a scaffolding of sound draftsmanship. So like the drawing is the bones, the color, the brushwork is the flesh. You get both together and it's really fun. And your imagination is active when you're looking at it because it's just, brushstroke here, brushstroke there. And you're putting it all together. And in doing so, it's like you're recreating that moment in the viewer's mind. Sort of like a poem, it's like poetry is distilled reality. You're taking a moment in time, breaking it down into unexpected word choices, and then somehow that's delivered to the audience, this magical spiritual experience. A good painting kind of accomplishes the same thing. But if you're just going to go full realist, you might as well just take a photo, and then I think it's a different medium that can be effective as well, but not what I find most compelling about painting and drawing.
So Monet's better than Rembrandt?
No. It's a personal taste thing. Rembrandt's awesome. I love Rembrandt. But
He'd be in the realist category, right?
Yeah. I actually don't know what school you'd throw him in, but like Rembrandt's still an impressionist. Like the isms that art gets slapped,
Right.
movements in art get slapped with are just kind of dates. Like they're helpful to kind of position what was going on at the time, but they're not like these hard and fast fenced lanes that.
I have a follow up on the solid draftsmanship. You kind of referenced that, like the American impressionists are doing that. But explain that to me. Like if I'm looking at two paintings, how do I know that this one's impressionist without solid draftsmanship, and how do I know that this one?
Manet and Monet, you should do that.
Yeah, Manet couldn't draw. Well, Renoir couldn't draw either. I don't like Renoir. He was.
So reference two paintings that we'll have producer Elliot put in
I don't know off the
post.
top of my head. Let's just grab any Monet and then the worst Manet, so I look like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Basically, like solid draftsmanship. A poorly drawn painting. So you can have let's say two paintings of a lady. One of them, it looks like she's melting and her arm is all weird. Both are rendered in a kind of impressionistic style, but one of them is bad anatomy, weird limb sizes, poor perspective. Proportions are all wrong. The other one, perspective is correct. The limbs are, the artist knew what he was doing with the anatomy. And then he built the colors and the values like on top of that scaffolding, if that makes sense. So one, like draftsmanship is just, can you represent the physical world with angles, lines, shapes in a way that's proportionally accurate to how it actually is? And then there's other people that are just like, when I was at art school, the common refrain was, well, I can't draw, so I'm just going to paint, which just doesn't make any sense because painting is drawing. Like you're still, people just are so eager to get to the color, the fun stuff, that they skip over like the fundamentals of painting, which is, draftsmanship. So
Okay. Nice. I have one to go back to, unless you want to go somewhere else. I can save my question.
Is it about this?
Yeah.
You go first.
You mentioned, so you're working back and forth between writing the story and illustrating the story. And I think you said the writing is the baseline and the illustrating is the melody, which threw me because I'm like a lumberjack. Because I'm like, hold on now. I mean, doesn't the writing have to be the melody? And isn't the illustrating the harmony? Or
yeah.
So do you think, if you were to think in those terms, is the illustrating the melody line?
Well, that's yeah. I mean, it was a metaphor.
I know, but I mean,
No,
I keyed off of it.
Yeah, I think actually, I do think that because you're reading it aloud, this book was designed or written to be read aloud by tired parents at the end of the day to their kids, and so, like it's written in what's the opposite of prose? Verse. It's written in verse with the same meter as Amazing Grace. So I did that so that like at the end of the day, parents are tired. You just kind of want to bounce down this, you bounce along the story. You don't want to have to like work through some hard, jagged prose. And like the words function as kind of the soundtrack. So like there's like this percussion to it. Like Nate talks about this with his writing. It's bouncy, percussive. And so it's something that you don't notice, but it happens to you, especially while you're reading Dr. Seuss. There's a walk it in my pocket. I was just reading that, and it's just fun to say. Like you're just it's like a trampoline or you're just drumming, just like da 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 da. You know. So the words function almost as like the soundtrack, and the pictures are the pictures are the pictures. You know. So I did think of the words kind of as the baseline, or just the drums. The drum set is the words, and then everything else is the rhythm guitar. The lead singer is all the images.
Nice. Yeah, I wonder if there's this might be irrelevant, but I'm reading Evening in the Palace of Reason.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of this book, but it's about like Bach's encounter with Frederick the Great.
Okay.
And he's pulling on like Bach's counterpoint in music, which I know also very little about. But the basics I understand is that he wrote, counterpoint has two lines going at the same time that are both melody. They would both classify as melody, whereas we're used to hearing one melody line and then harmony. And that's why Bach feels so heavy, is because you have two melodies, sometimes three melodies, all going at the same time. Sometimes one melody mimicking the first melody you heard, but later, so you get this kind of fugue situation. But when you mentioned the interplay of text and illustration, I was wondering about that hit me. I was like, my bet is there's some counterpoint, like my 4-year-old daughter, who, even if I didn't read her the book, could likely just look at the pictures and get the story. So it's like it stands on its own.
Yeah.
And then you also have to your earlier point, you don't want it to be the exact same melody in the text and in the illustrations, but the degree to which they stand alone is maps onto at least what Bach was doing. So
nice. Me and Bach,
You and Bach.
That's a huge book.
Actually, that is really interesting, because that is something I keep in mind at all, like while I'm working on these things, is it has to stand alone. Text has to stand alone. Pictures have to stand alone, and then together they have to be, they have to work as well. But if you come to a point where you're relying on the picture to push the narrative forward, then that's a big red flag generally, because they might miss the image, or or if you're relying just on the words to convey a bunch of information real quick, then it just gets too text heavy and imbalanced. Yeah.
So back to, I wanted to ask you, there's I think in our community, there's a big, when I would add music to this, but there's a feeling of like, I want to mature in the arts. And by that, I mean books. So I want to keep growing in what I'm reading. I want to keep, elevating my book maturity. And maybe movies too, with, like the popularity of SASF and other things like that. Do you feel like ought we to be growing in paintings or things like that? Like, is that a medium that we should be seeking to grow in?
You have to have an anointing to do that, I think.
Or is it that? Is it like a special
to
corner?
paint? Well,
No. Well,
to grow in your tastes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I think we were talking about this earlier. Poetry, painting as a medium kind of exists in the same world as poetry now. Like, it used to be powerful. Nations would look to their poet laureate and be like, that's our guy,
The Russians with Pushkin.
Yeah. John Singer Sargent was a rock star. Howard Pyle was a rock star. N.C. Wyeth. There used to be illustrators and painters that were rock stars and could actually kind of affect, like, shape culture directly. Now, poetry it's, I guess, rap is
It's a
is the
leisure
closest.
activity.
But yeah, it's something that nerds do with cardigans, and no one does it. Painting is similar in that it's not as like culturally.
It's fallen from grace
Yeah.
or a position of.
It's not as effective anymore. Like, people's attention has moved elsewhere. But so it's kind of painting has gone from like this powerful force to just like interior decoration. Like, what are you going to put on your walls? Which is fine. Like, but it's not anything more special than that. All you artists out there, if you're painting, you're in the world of interior design. Which is why I like illustration, because at least you can be a little more culturally, there's a little more cultural punch behind a story. Like, you can actually, I think, move people a little better. But paintings on your walls, yeah, people I think absolutely should be putting stuff on their walls and growing in their taste, trying to figure out what's good, what has been good in the past, what's still good now. And then obviously affording original artwork is not
also,
something that's tough. So prints are fine. I have prints on my walls.
Same. In that vein, if we have just a recurring segment with a recurring guest like Forrest Dickison, I'd like to call it just the right stuff for your walls, and maybe the wrong stuff for your walls. Can you just give us? Can you give us in that vein? Can you give us an artist today that you say this is someone you should really take a look at? I recommend them for your walls, and then I would actually like the inverse, the wrong stuff for your walls. Here's a guy. Here's a lady, would not recommend for your walls.
Well, if they're a living artist, and so let's go with Glendine.
Okay, a living
One
artist.
of my favorite living artists. He's kind of doing this N.C. Wyeth thing for the American West, where it's lonely cowboys riding through Western landscapes. Phenomenal brushwork. A classic example of someone who's borderline impressionist, poetic colors, but really solid draftsmanship. It's good modern day cowboy poetry. That's what that is. But to get an original Glendine
costs a lot. Also, not many prints of Glendine running around.
Yeah, he doesn't.
So
make
who's
prints.
somebody that we could go out today and be like, if I really made an effort, under $100, I could get a print. I could go down, get it framed. Who's just one person we should look into?
Forrest Dickison.
Tough. Oh yeah. I sell prints. There you go. Buy some of mine. But I don't.
It's an expensive task.
I don't.
Dickison.
I don't know. Sorry to.
Do you want me to just give you one and then
Yeah,
you can
you
talk
might
about
be
it?
thinking of one.
Do Soroya.
Yeah, but he's dead. You said living.
No, I didn't mean living. Sorry. I apologize if I.
Oh
included
no,
living.
maybe you didn't. That's what I heard. But yeah, Soroya. So Joaquin Soroya, Spanish master of light, phenomenal brushwork. The most human compositions and moments that he's painting. He's just like, everybody wants to paint like Sorolla, and I don't think anyone will for maybe ever again.
Give us one painting.
Well, give us one painting, then I have questions about this.
Yeah, and that's good. The Toonie Catch by Sorolla is like, it's one of my favorites. It's a crowd scene of sailors dragging these giant sloppy wet tuna under this awning that's got golden Spanish sun, and there's the sea in the background. There's ships. There's everything you could need in a painting, and he painted it from life too, so that's extra impressive.
All right, so my question is, I'm interested in like the objectivity.
Here. Jared, if you wanted to just quick.
Okay. So, well, maybe we could use this. There's several ways I could get at my question. I'm looking at like, painting 101, the objectivity of beauty in painting. I once had a prof at NSA, Cole Titino, who's this brilliant cellist, had him play 2 pieces, one by Bach, one by Saint-Saëns. And I said, I want you to play each piece in front of the whole student body, and then I want you to tell us which one God likes more and why. Okay? So I'm basically getting the same thing with painting with you. Now, we could either do this by looking at one of your illustrations in this book, and I want you to tell me why it's good, or you could do it with this painting. You've mentioned 2 phrases, both of which I need context for. I think you said poetic colors. I'm like, excellent. All right, but that's good to know. Have no idea what it is. Yeah. And you said phenomenal brushwork, which I'm like, all right, great. Like,
as opposed to
we're in the art gallery, you and me, and you're like,
this is what guys are thinking.
You're like, dude,
it needs to be
phenomenal brushwork, and I'm like, really, it's really impressive stuff. Yeah. So choose your poison, your book or this painting, and tell us define those 2 terms, and then tell us what are the objective standards by which it excels others.
What do you want to get after? The Sorolla painting?
Yeah, let's talk about the Sorolla painting. But so first, poetic color. This is
dang. Could be.
It's a big can of worms. I know. Maybe we should. So poetic. So like naturalistic color. You just go out, take a photo. The sky is blue. The clouds are white. The grass is green. Okay.
Crayons.
Or crayons, which is fine. It's good stuff. Ghibli does this kind of color. Poetic color is your. This is such a big. So you have.
I'm telling you, it could have
been. You're making it better than God. Like, what are you talking about?
No, it's you're taking what God did and crafting it into a poem, so that when you give it to, because look, God gets the sun and the physical world and smells and touch and taste, and we have to take like colored dirt and scrub it on a canvas and try and represent the experience we had out there, or the experience we had watching the people drag in the fish. And so you have to, all color is ultimately a poetic take on what it was that you saw. So
are you meaning that as in like not a 1-for-1 take? It's a...
Yeah, you're taking the elements, you're keying the painting off one particular color, and then like, okay, that's my yellow. Now to harmonize that, I have to grab these other blues and greens and like mix them so that the wavelengths that are bouncing off them harmonize. Because color is similar to sound. It's wavelengths, but instead of hitting your ear, it's hitting your eye. Something that is green is bouncing off. It's absorbing all color except for that particular green, and that's the wavelength that's hitting your eye. So that wavelength, if you grab this particular green with a wavelength of, I don't know how this,
that works,
a certain amount,
that much.
This wavelength,
okay,
and then you grab a yellow that has a wavelength that just clashes with it. It doesn't harmonize. The yellow is sharp and the green is flat. It's not gonna look good. So but let's say that's like, maybe that's how it looked to you when you went out there. It's like you had this really sharp yellow and this really flat green. Poetic color is making these choices just more consciously. So you can end up with a sky that's like gray, and then clouds that are purple, and then grass that is pushed really blue. But if it's all harmonizing, you step back and like the people are like, wow, that's such a sunny, bright day. In fact, your values are really crushed. So you're not using your brightest brights and your darkest darks.
But you've lined up those crushed values in such a way is it looks like a bright, like
right, because
it hit your
the
brain.
colors are actually like the wavelengths are actually humming. They're hitting your eye. It's like a Beach Boys melody for your eyeballs.
Can
so
you
like
key off
for this,
yeah.
like this is the bottom of the clouds here are this green, right? As the clouds roll, as the form turns.
Forrest, make sure you're on the camera. There.
Oh, so like as the form turns, you're going from the shadow side to the light side. But if I grayscaled this, like if I just took all the color out of it, bled it out, this value up here and this value down here would be almost identical. So it'd be almost the same level of gray. You introduce color and you get the idea that it to your eye, it looks like this form is turning because you have this warm color, this cool color. And those two colors are dialed so that they harmonize, if that makes sense.
So it's orange and blue.
Yeah. But a certain
But
orange and a certain blue, I've taken the values that
Brightness?
yeah, brightness. So value is how dark or light it is.
Okay.
So color is like temperature, how cool or warm you pick your, is it you take the values, put them all in the middle, and then harmonize those, and you get this like poetic. That's what I call like poetic color. It's like it's not screaming rock and roll. It's not like loud. The volume's not turned up, but your chords are really I don't know, close, but they harmonize. Yeah, it's
You're not taking just white, the whitest white, setting it next to the orangest orange.
Yeah, it'd be like that cloud I saw was so glorious and beautiful. I just want to make it as bright as I can. So you're just gonna go white, but like you're bleeding out all the color. So you have to drop the value down like 5 notches.
The way that God does it at like 5 p.m., 5:30 p.m.
Yeah. And
it's
then,
not the same value as it is at noon.
right, but you can and then tailor your other colors so that this thing is now like a symphony. High contrast images think of them more as like primitive cavemen. Low contrast images with harmonizing color, think of that as like, a sophisticated orchestra. Everything's really finely tuned. Every part's been thought out, and it's harmonizing. The black and white is like, rock and roll screamo, volume turned way up, really obvious, unsophisticated. And both can be used it just depends on what you're trying to do.
So that was poetic colors. What was your other question?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
What was it? High contrast would be black and white.
Yeah, it's obvious. It's less poetic. So,
Okay. Poetic colors. It involves multiple colors and the harmonization of those colors.
Yeah, and it's like a poetic take on the landscape. You're not just painting what you saw. You're taking what you saw and elevating it through the use of harmonizing colors.
And you're saying God does this. If you're going to look into sunset, that's the chief poetic colors. Would that be legit poetic colors? Not a lot of contrast. I mean, it's similar to what you were pointing out here in the clouds.
No, actually, I mean, if you go out to nature anywhere, you take a color swatch from any natural thing, you're going to get a really nice harmony. So there's a book called From the Land Comes the Cloth, and it's Scottish tweed makers will do this. They'll just go out and just like grab a little swatch from the landscape and then build a tweed color scheme off of that swatch. So you got like the gray of the sky, the green of the ocean, the blue green, the gray rock, and now we're gonna go design clothes based on that color scheme, and it's always gonna be perfect, amazing. And even I even saw one where they added there was a flock of sheep, and the sheep have the tags in the ears, like for whatever reason, I don't know, and they took the little pops of color from those tags and threw it into the tweed. So you have like this nice kind of earth tone tweed jacket and these little like sprinkles of sheep tag color in there, which is that's great.
I want you to pursue Jared's question of what God likes best.
Yeah, but so
can you ask
give me 2 things though? Like, are we comparing Soroya to my book or?
No, I mean, well, it's just going to start with the objective standards of art. So you could use that painting or one of yours and tell us like what's good about it. So you mentioned brushstroke, I think was the other. So we've gotten a little bit into this poetic color. So there's a poetic color standard.
Right.
That's one standard. Great brushwork. That might be another standard. What are the standards? Can you point out this is what makes this a good illustration?
Yeah, I mean, well, how big picture do you want to go? Do you want like back way up or go more specific?
Probably should start with like the fundamentals. Like what are the 5 basic standards that make it great?
Yeah, when it comes to illustration, it'd be like draftsmanship. How well is it drawn? Composition. Is the whole thing composed? Is the picture balanced with a good variety, a good mix of variety and then unity? So and then
variety
color.
and unity.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, this is great. So
all right, give me one.
Let's grab this one here. So I stole this from NC Wyeth. So I know it's good because it was his. The Frog Pirates.
Uh-huh.
So if you're way back and you're squinting at this, you've got like basically a yellow strip, a dark triangle, and then a white strip. So that would be like the simplest version of that. The values are grouped. There's 2 clumps inside of that big shape. You've got clump here, clump there. But within that shape, there's like the edges. There's all kinds of interesting little variations. Together, though, that reads as one shape. So there's this unified clump of pirates, and then all this interesting little details for like the edges. The silhouette is interesting. The values are a little crushed.
Where are the crushed values?
So if you look at like my darkest dark, this is like a gray.
Yep.
I could have gone
But it
full
looks
black.
like black from over here.
Yeah, it looks like it reads as like those are black pants, or like this is a black ocean. This is not even close to white. It's like,
okay.
I mean, it could be pretty.
Which speaks to this is the poetic
Coloring.
poetic coloring.
Yeah.
Because you crushed the values, so you didn't go hard black and hard white.
Yeah. You're bringing your blacks up, your whites down, and you're living within this kind of what's the word? Like limited range.
And that's objectively better than if it was hard black, hard white?
No, it depends on what you're trying to do with it. So, an Ansel Adams photograph, really high contrast in general. And that's like objectively better is so at this level, it's a lot more to do with taste and what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, no, let's go. No, okay, we might not get to all the standards, but I'm latching on to one here.
Okay.
Let's say I do your same thing. I just copy and I go hard black, hard white. What am I trying to do with it? Why
did I do that? And why did I do that?
Let's say he turned this in. What is your note if he didn't do the poetic colors?
Okay. So, it has to do with like the experience that I was trying to give to a kid. It's like I wanted this to feel human, handcrafted. I know that it's low art because it's a picture book.
And there's frogs on it.
Okay.
Frog pirates.
But the thing that I love is low art with a sophisticated twist. So I'm like, if you're gonna give me, this is like a cheeseburger, but this is gonna be like gourmet cheeseburger.
Okay, yeah.
If this was like just a McDonald's cheeseburger, yeah, the flavors are dialed way up. It's like salt, sugar, you're done. There's ketchup, there's meat, there's cheese, and so then it's high contrast. It's just kind of your basic junk food. But this, I wanted it to be like fine dining for kids. So it has to be pretentious and without them knowing, you know.
It has to be pretentious while being compelling. Like you're not.
Yeah.
No one looks at this and is like, "Well, this guy's stuck up."
No, but secretly I am.
Okay. That's interesting. So but you said if you went high contrast, if you went no poetic color, meaning you went full value black, full value white, you're not saying that's objectively not as good or beautiful. You're actually placing it within purpose.
Yeah.
Is it just what purpose would suit high value black, high value white in this instance? Like, does that mean it's more abrasive, it's bolder, it's I don't know, is it
more abrasive, more bolder. Okay.
It would have the feeling of like walking into a McDonald's play place where
it's just everything's shouting at you. Think of like the famous photo of Johnny Cash's finger, which we have some history with.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that photo is pretty high contrast. It's like violent, aggressive. The meaning is right there on the surface, But if you're trying to be a little more Monet, a little more Bach, then you're crushing your values. You're hiding things a little more. You're making it a little more sophisticated.
Interesting. Because obviously, if you crush your values entirely, you have nothing but a gray piece of paper, right?
Right. Yeah, you can go too far anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Forrest Dickison, we'd love to have you come back and do a color episode. Just take me and Jared, just total
color episode.
Noobs.
And we have to, maybe next time we can get into brushwork.
We didn't even talk about brushwork.
What constitutes good brushwork and what doesn't? That would be fun.
It'd be, yeah. We'll use examples.
It would be fun.
It'll be great. So everyone, go buy Crispin's Rainy Day. Number 2, look into Soroya.
Yeah.
Go get a Soroya print.
Don't get one of the ones with the naked people in it, because he did paint plenty of naked people, but
mostly children in a good way.
It's on the beach,
Yeah. And then, so look into Soroya. And then last but not least, go watch your documentary on Canon Plus. So there's a documentary of Forrest making this book. Jared, watch it with the kids tonight.
Okay. I have my assignment.
And then you can read this to them for the first time, and then get a review. Maybe they don't like it, maybe they do, and then you can ask them why.
Yeah.
How about that outro for producer Elliot?
There you go.
Thank you for watching The Right Stuff. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Forrest.